Good morning, everyone, and welcome to City Views, our weekly program discussing important local issues. Today, we are talking about something we often see in our parks, squares, and streets: public art. Should our city government use taxpayers' money to pay for statues, murals, and other art projects in public spaces? It's a question with strong opinions on both sides. Here to share their views, we have David Chen. David is a well-known local artist and manages community art projects. He believes government funding is important for public art. And we also have Sarah Jenkins, a respected city councilor who often focuses on how the city spends its money. Sarah is more cautious about using public funds for these initiatives. Welcome to you both. So the main question today is funding public art a necessary investment for our community, or are there better ways to spend limited public money?
Thank you, Maria. It's great to be here. I believe strongly that art is not just decoration. It's essential for a healthy city and happy people. Think about a park with a beautiful sculpture or a boring wall transformed by a colorful mural. Public art makes our city more interesting, more beautiful, and simply a nicer place to live and walk around in. It can make people feel proud of their neighborhood, but it's more than just looking nice. Public art brings people together. I've seen this happen in my projects. People stop and talk about the art. Neighbors meet each other. Sometimes, community members even help create the art. This builds strong connections between people. Think about workshops where children paint a mural together, or a project where different cultural groups contribute ideas. This creates understanding and shared experiences. And let's not forget the economic side. Public art can attract tourists. People travel to see famous sculptures or interesting art installations. Think about the Bean in Chicago, for example. This brings money into local cafes, shops, and hotels. It also creates jobs, not just for artists like me, but for people who make materials, construction workers who install the art, and people who help manage the projects. So when the government provides financial support for public art, it's not just spending money, it's investing. It's an investment in our culture and our community spirit, and even in our local economy. It makes our city richer in many ways. It shows we care about more than just roads and buildings. We care about the soul of our city.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you, David, for your points. I certainly agree that art can be enjoyable and can make places look better. Nobody dislikes beauty. However, as a city councilor, my main responsibility is to think carefully about how we use the public's money, the money people pay in taxes. Our city budget is limited. There are many important things we need to pay for. We need good schools for our children. We need well-equipped hospitals and healthcare services. We need safe roads and reliable public transport. We need police officers and firefighters to keep us safe. These are essential services that everyone in the city relies on every single day. So when we talk about spending money on public art, we must ask, is this the most important use for that money right now? Could that money save a library program, or repair more potholes, or hire another nurse? Another big question is fairness. How do we decide which art projects get funded? Art is very personal. What one person loves, another person might dislike strongly. Who gets to choose? A small committee? How can we be sure their choices represent everyone? Using public money for something that many people might not like, or might even find ugly, seems problematic. We also need to consider the ongoing costs. It's not just the price of creating the art. Public art needs maintenance. It needs cleaning, repairs if it gets damaged, and insurance. These costs continue year after year. Is that a sustainable use of our limited funds? Perhaps there are other ways to bring art into our city. Maybe local businesses could sponsor sculptures, or community groups could raise money for murals they really want. I believe we need to focus government spending on the core services that benefit everyone before we allocate significant funds to optional things like public art.
Thank you both for those clear opening statements. Let's dive into some specific points. David, you mentioned economic benefits like tourism and jobs. Sarah, you expressed concern about the high costs and questioned if the benefits are real. David, can public art projects truly generate enough economic activity to justify the government spending? Do we have proof?
Yes, I believe they can, Maria. It might not be a direct return like a toll road, but the benefits are real, even if they are sometimes harder to measure immediately. Think about cities that are famous for their public art. It becomes part of their identity and attracts visitors specifically for that reason. Even smaller projects can help local areas. A unique sculpture in a park might draw people from other parts of the city, who then spend money in nearby shops. I worked on a mural project in the Old Town District. Shopkeepers there told us they saw more people walking around and stopping in after the murals went up. And the jobs are definite. We hire local artists, buy paint and materials from local suppliers. Sometimes we need welders or builders. It's not huge numbers for one project, maybe, but it supports creative professionals and related trades in our own community. It's a long-term investment. A landmark piece of art can draw interest for decades, long after the initial cost is forgotten.
David makes it sound very positive, but I remain cautious. Might draw people, shopkeepers told us. This is not strong economic data. Are we sure the art caused the increase in visitors, or were there other reasons? It's hard to prove a direct link, and the costs are very direct and often very high. We're talking tens, sometimes hundreds of thousands of pounds, or even more, for a single large installation. That money comes directly from taxpayers. The jobs created might be temporary, or benefit only a small number of people. Compare that to investing the same amount in road repairs. The benefit is immediate. Safer, faster travel for thousands of people every day. Or investing in skills training programs that directly helps people find long-term jobs. While a few tourists might come, the economic benefit of essential infrastructure or services seems much clearer and more widespread for the community. We need guaranteed returns when spending public money, not just hopeful possibilities.
Okay, let's move beyond the purely economic arguments. David, you also spoke about community building. How does public art contribute to the social fabric of our city? Does it really make life better for residents in a meaningful way?
Absolutely, Maria. I think this is one of the most important aspects. Public art creates shared points of interest in our public spaces. It gives people something to talk about, something to experience together. Think of a sculpture in a plaza. It becomes a meeting point, a landmark. Meet me by the statue. It helps create a sense of place, an identity for a neighborhood, or the whole city. When people feel connected to their environment, they care more about it. This builds local pride. There's also an educational value. Art can make us think. It can challenge us, or show us different perspectives. A historical mural can teach people about local history in an engaging way. Abstract art can spark imagination, especially in children. Having art freely available in public spaces means everyone can experience it, regardless of whether they can afford to go to a gallery or museum. It can improve mental well-being too. Beauty, creativity, interesting things to look at. These things can lift people's spirits during their daily lives. It makes the public realm feel more human and less functional.
I agree that community spirit and shared spaces are vital, David. But I think there are many ways to achieve that. Well-maintained parks with good playgrounds, safe streets where neighbors feel comfortable walking, community centers, and libraries. These things also build community very effectively. And arguably, these services are more essential and benefit a wider range of people on a daily basis. Does a specific sculpture truly benefit everyone? Or does it mainly appeal to people who are already interested in art? While David says art is free for all to see, does everyone feel it improves their life? Some people might just walk past it without noticing. Others, as I said, might actively dislike it. If a community group feels strongly that a piece of art would enhance their local park, perhaps they could organize fundraising efforts. That way, we know it's something the local people truly want and are invested in, rather than something chosen by a central committee and paid for by everyone, including those who don't want it? Should the government's limited community-building funds prioritize art over, say, extending library hours or improving park safety?
This brings us back to the difficult question of priorities and fairness. Sarah, is it fair to use general tax money, collected from everyone, for something like art, when needs like healthcare, education, and safety are so pressing? David, how do you respond to the argument that art is a nice-to-have, while these other areas are must-haves?
I understand the concern about priorities, Maria, but I disagree that art is just an optional extra, like icing on a cake. I believe culture is fundamental to a good society, not just a luxury. We already use public money for things that aren't strictly survival needs. We fund libraries, museums, parks, sports facilities. Why? Because we believe these things improve our quality of life, educate us, and make our community a better place to live. Public art does the same thing, but it does it out in the open, accessible to absolutely everyone, every day, for free. You don't need a ticket, you don't need to plan a visit. It meets you where you are. This is especially important for people who might not have the money or opportunity to visit traditional cultural institutions. It makes our shared public spaces more democratic and enriching for all citizens. Saying we should only fund basic survival needs paints a very gray picture of the kind of city we want to live in. Surely we aspire to more than just existing. We want to live in a place that inspires us, makes us think, and brings us joy.
David speaks eloquently about aspirations, but government has to deal with realities. And the reality is limited resources. Libraries and parks serve very broad functions: education, recreation, community space that are generally supported by almost everyone. The same cannot always be said for specific art installations. As I mentioned, taste in art is subjective. Using taxpayer money to fund a piece of art that a significant portion of the population dislikes or even finds offensive is difficult to justify. We've seen controversies in other cities over public art. It can divide communities just as easily as unite them, if not chosen carefully. And the process of choosing is inherently problematic when public funds are involved. How do we ensure fairness? How do we avoid funding art that only appeals to a small elite, or art that causes public disagreement? With essential services like health or road maintenance, there's broad agreement on the need. With art, that agreement often isn't there. Therefore, I maintain that the government's primary duty is to focus tax money on those universally agreed upon essential services first and foremost. Art is valuable, but perhaps its funding should come from sources other than the general city budget, sources that reflect specific support rather than general obligation. So, to summarize my position, while art certainly has value, I believe the government must be extremely careful with public money. Our priority has to be the essential services that everyone depends on: our schools, our hospitals, our infrastructure, our safety. The economic benefits claimed for public art are often uncertain and hard to prove, unlike the clear benefits of investing in core services. The costs of public art, both initial and ongoing maintenance, are significant and take away funds from other pressing needs. Furthermore, using taxpayer money raises difficult questions about fairness in selecting art that appeals to diverse tastes. Therefore, I believe we should actively encourage private funding, business sponsorships, and community fundraising for public art initiatives, rather than relying heavily on the city's main budget. Let's focus our limited public resources where they are most needed, and provide the clearest benefit to all citizens.
Thank you. From my perspective, government support for public art is crucial for a vibrant and healthy city. Public art enhances our shared spaces, making our city more beautiful, interesting, and welcoming for both residents and visitors. It fosters community identity, encourages interaction between people, and provides educational opportunities right in our neighborhoods. While the economic benefits might be harder to count than road usage, they are real. attracting visitors, creating jobs, and supporting our creative economy. Funding public art is an investment in our quality of life and our shared culture, just like funding parks, libraries, or community centers. It ensures that art is accessible to everyone, enriching public life for all, not just those who can afford gallery tickets. Therefore, I believe the government has an important role to play in supporting public art, ensuring our city is not just functional, but also inspiring and culturally rich for generations to come.
Thank you both, David Chen and Sarah Jenkins, for a very thoughtful and interesting discussion on a complex topic. We've heard strong arguments about the cultural, social, and economic value of public art, weighed against concerns about financial priorities, taxpayer money, and essential services. It certainly gives us all plenty to think about. Thank you to our audience for joining us on City Views.